This week on Media Delta, Panzer Dragoon was one of the Saturn's most famous titles. It served as a tech demo for the graphical capabilities of the console and a unique property for Sega to expand upon with further sequels. The unique world was one of the most bizarre Sega had created since the days of Fantasy Zone and Space Harrier. The relative lack of story in the game itself and the unique setting they created for Panzer Dragoon made it a prime candidate for having outside media explain its world. An OVA was released in Japan in 1996, the year after the release of the game. Can this OVA serve as a proper supplement to the game? Let's find out as we discuss Panzer Dragoon, the OVA. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Media Delta. This thing that we're talking about today is actually kind of interesting because I don't know if a whole lot of people realize that this exists. Because the game that this is based off of, we took a look at pretty long ago during the Ranking of Shmups era. The game we're talking about, or at least the OVA that was based on the game that we're talking about, is Panzer Dragoon. Looked at that during the Ranking of Shmups era. Pretty interesting game. Kind of used as a tech demo for the Saturn. But I bet you a lot of people realize that there was an OVA. So, I am not the only one who watched this. So, with me, I have in alphabetical order.
Hi, I'm Axe, and I fly like paper, get high like planes.
Die.
Hi, I'm TorpidTypist, and I felt this was a real Dragoon.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah. Yes. This OVA originally came out in 1996, a year after the original game's release. Only came out, basically, if you want a copy of this, you can get it on VHS or Laserdisc for a good price of $20, which is interesting pricing for reasons. Like, considering how long it is. But we'll get to that a little later. So, we are going to do the kind of the format that we've been doing a little while ago, the questions format. I have condensed this down from 10 questions to 8, so we're going to see how this goes. So, Axe, what was the scene that you want to talk about?
All right. So, despite it only being 25 minutes long, there were definitely a lot of scenes worth mentioning, but there's one that got me so that I'm going to point it out. And that's Debok just getting fucking fried. Just not even mattering anymore. It's just
absolutely fucking vaporized.
Like, I was not expecting them to pull that shit and then just, like, I expected to just knock him out of the way and knocks, like, something down or whatever. No, he just jumps in the way and fucking dies. And it's great because it fits in with just how meaningless this entire OVA felt. Nobody mattered, nothing had happened mattered, and nothing had any impact.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't really give a shit about him dying afterwards, did they?
No, it doesn't get mentioned one more time. He just goes, T-Block! Oh, right, Alita. And then just fucks off.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it seemed like, I wonder if this was it couldn't have been a pilot, because it kind of resolves itself at the end, but it almost seems like a cut down thing from, like, if you did like a minute from every episode of a season of an OVA or a season of an anime.
If you cut out all the filler of a season of anime, this is kind of what you'd end up with, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one scene, just out of everything's just kind of like he's there, they're talking, and then this thing fires, and it just goes boom, fucking dead. It's just, it floored me. Which is the only other, like, emotion I had during this, other than why is this still going on?
Yeah. Also, that's the thing that I liked about this, is that, why is this, like, I like that the guy's just name is Devidoc. That's his full name. I'm looking at the cast list right now.
Okay, it's Devidoc, because I wrote down Debok, because I couldn't figure out.
It's almost like the way they pronounce things in this thing is kind of weird. Like,
it's almost like the voice acting was really terrible.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in another question. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
Death, what about you?
Honestly, none. But if I have to pick one, I'll pick the scene at the end where Alita's somehow not blind anymore.
Yeah,
That's what the fuck.
Dragon did her a solid, okay?
Yeah.
How are we going to wrap this OVA up? How about some ableism? Hell yes.
Is this the ocean? I recognize this smell. Ah, this voice, is that you? Boyfriend who I forgot the name of?
Kyle.
Yeah,
Kyle.
his name-
Kyle, how? That's why I forgot it, because it's uninteresting. Like the
Yes.
character.
I've forgotten his name several times now.
Apparently, I was reading something that his name's supposed to be, because this is apparently a character that was just created for this OVA. Apparently, it's supposed to be Kelly, like Keli, but I wonder if they just kind of translated it. Like, oh, that's close enough to Kyle. We'll just do that.
I would be fucking not surprised at all, given the general quality of that translation.
Yeah.
They jumped in the booth, saw the name, said Kyle, and fucked off. Let's just kind of call it
Yeah.
what it felt like.
They were there for a paycheck and nothing more.
They banged this out in like 20 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, that's how it felt.
Let's be real, there were no retakes.
Yeah, there was, yes. Torpo, what about you?
There's just so much that happens, and yet none of it's interesting. But if I'm gonna go with something, I'm gonna talk about the very beginning, when they were on those whatever the fuck creatures they were, the Guars. I'm gonna call them Guars because that's all I can think of now from fucking Morrowind. When they were riding on them, just shooting these random rats in the ground, and the blind girl displayed her super ability to sense them. And it's why for a while I was like, is she blind? Is she supposed to be blind? What's going on?
I didn't even pick up she was blind until literally the oh god, I think it was actually the ending. It was like, oh, she was blind the whole time. Okay, you book a realized me. Fuck you.
But no, she could sense them, and it was really weird. And then all of a sudden, the dragon lifts her up and puts her in the vagina on its back.
I also have that written down here. Dragon has vagina on it.
Yeah, it's a fucking vagina on its back.
So the funny thing about that opening thing is that is taken basically straight, like that is exactly what happens in the opening for the Saturn game, except it's just one person, and then like it's not like a group of people, but then also
Torpid, it's a neck, vagina, and two buttholes. Right?
You're right. Literally for fisting.
I didn't realize that this was actually our type.
Oh my god.
God, to think of I'm trying to think of a scene for me. I like the one that I'm thinking of for some reason is the when they find the captain who somehow managed to survive, and just
Again.
all of a sudden, oh, I guess they're possessed.
Yes.
Because it didn't make any sense of why they were doing that.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, there's no explanation as to how he gets possessed, why he gets possessed, what possessed him, and then it's a immediate 180 because he was giving BD, I'm just gonna call it BD, the dragon, a bunch of shit for wanting to kill him. But I guess the dragon knew he was possessed or was going to be possessed, and that was why he was going to kill him. I don't fucking know.
I'm guessing that the black dragon has some sort of possessive ability because Alita also got possessed.
Yeah, but also Alita was in the neck vagina.
Yeah,
Right.
and somehow got marks on her face like she's Luna from Lunar.
Except they didn't matter and went away.
In that context, it makes sense, but for it to be able to like possess somebody far away makes none.
I think that's because there's a scene of like the flies coming in and like doing something that I think might have signified, oh hey, this is something happening.
I thought they ate the ship.
Yeah, but also
And then the dragon burned down the entire fleet anyway.
for reference, the blue dragon's name is Blau.
Blau. Yeah. I didn't even bother trying to figure out the names. I just sort of like BD for blue dragon, and I think GD for gray dragon. Just gave up on it.
Yeah.
Because nobody matters in this OVA.
So yes, speaking of mattering, Torpo, how'd you feel about the setting / characters?
There were characters?
Yes, allegedly.
Yeah.
I guess in the technical sense they were. They existed, said things, and served a purpose. Well, only one of them served a purpose in the plot, really, but they were there is the nicest thing I can say about the characters.
Yes.
At worst, the main character has no personality and does nothing but bitch. And also, his girlfriend is blind, and then she's not blind, and it's treated really weird and uncomfortably.
Yeah.
The
Well-
setting itself, they don't expand on in any way. It just seems like generic fantasy crap done in really, really dog shit 3D.
Yes. Yeah. How about Death?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know the Cycle's Torpid covered most of it, but yeah, they don't explain the setting at all, other than some vague comments about there being an empire and some shit that happened in the past. And they're like medieval setting, but they've also got space guns and laser tower and whatnot.
Yeah.
Characters were awful. I couldn't remember anything about them. They gave a subplot to that captain there because he was present at the very beginning with the original airship going down, and then he was back again, and then he just died.
Then he got fucking vaporized.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah. Oh, and the dragon's kind of shit too, because apparently he could talk this whole time, and he never bothered to explain himself to Kyle at any point. Like, why are you destroying the Imperial fleet? Just didn't say.
Yeah.
Funsy.
But then at the very end, he's like, "Bro, I got you, fam.
Yeah.
Have fun on this island getaway with your girlfriend who can see now."
Yeah.
Gandalf the dragon.
Because the thing with the like not explaining anything, like in the game, it makes sense because it's kind of like you're playing this weird looking game, and it's like a spectacle kind of thing. It's almost like if you think about Space Harrier, like nothing in Space Harrier makes sense, and it's like kind of fascinating from a gameplay perspective. But if you're doing something like a OVA or something like a narrative medium, you can't quite do that as much.
Yeah, no, like the game itself has this like vibe of like this fantastic adventure in this strange place on a sweet dragon.
Yeah.
But then this cannot capture that at all.
So Axe, what are your thoughts?
All right. So y'all touched on a bunch of things. I want to touch on something that's leapt out to me, and that is somebody should go tell Kyle to stop pressing X to Alita, because Jesus Christ, he says her name so many times. I feel like we could have done a drinking game out of it.
I feel like he says it more times than any other like words combined in his dialogue.
I felt like, and this is probably incorrect, he said Alita more times than either Inuyasha or Kagome has said throughout the entire goddamn series. Because it is every other word out of it. It's like my saying fuck is his Alita.
Yeah, per volume, yeah, definitely.
Hammering the Sean button.
just Alita, my lady, Alita.
God, no, fucking her
my
referring
lady.
to her as my lady was like the worst thing.
Okay, I have a note here. Whereas, here it is. It says Kyle talks shit to a dragon. Oh ho ho ho, my lady.
He did tip his hat.
It's when we're talking about characters, like we spent so much time with Kyle, and we spent so much time with this one character, and I want to destroy him because
he is insufferable.
He does have a personality, and that is he's fucking annoying. And then D-Bach existed to die. Alita existed to be blind, saved, and then given sight because not being able to see is apparently
She is the designated girlfriend.
Yeah.
Both the Gray Dragon existed as an antagonist that we don't actually really interact with much except to die chumpily at the end. And then Blau is Gandalf the Dragon. He's a dumb idiot dick who doesn't explain anything at the start and then just kind of like Deus Ex Machina, we're done.
Yeah, it's because it's like, okay, I'll get to it more into it, but a different thing. But it's like they had to, okay, we have been commissioned to make this anime. By the way, since I don't know if it's gonna go into the other questions, one thing I do want to point out, the production team behind this was done by Production IG, which is a pretty big and well-known anime studio. Like it's Tatsunoko.
They made.
And you wouldn't guess that based by the way this came out, because this was miserable.
So, Production IG's done a lot of shit is the thing, but one of their big ones is, Ghost and...
Yeah, it's that.
Also, Eden of the East is another really...
I love Eden of the East. I can't picture that company doing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is 1996! Production IG!
Well, to be fair, Ghost in the Shell, I think, came out at this point.
Fuck, you're right.
So that
What
doesn't.
was
Find out.
God,
Though to be fair, I bet you the budget on this was probably shoestring.
they gave him like a can of Pringles.
Non-existent.
They gave him like half a can of Pringles and a Mountain Dew, and just said, "Fucking go at it."
Which is kind of like what I want to go into the setting of characters, because boy howdy, this thing's budget was very clearly shown.
It
The
had a budget.
Yeah, the 3D in that, this is, because I was thinking, I'm like, okay, so the way that we watched it was we were able to watch this on, this is available on YouTube. You can watch the version that we watched was the English dub, which is, it was kind of thinking of watching the Japanese dub, even though there's one with no subtitles, just to hear the quality of the voice acting. I don't think that it's going to fix anything.
It was some real hot trying to match the mouth flaps, which are moving faster than you could say.
Yeah,
And it was very clearly like late '90s recording, because you could hear the echo in the studio, and I don't really hold that against it. And I could tell some of the visuals. Some of the visuals were clashed just because compression on YouTube sucks. So
well, it's not just that. It's like, as Lolo said, there was no budget. And now that Lolo's mentioned it, and now that I think about it, yeah, Ghost in the Shell was a year before this, and that is abso-fucking-lutely gorgeous.
But also probably had a massive budget behind
That's
it.
what I mean, though, is like, this had no budget.
The thing
this was clearly just a cash-in for the game.
Well, also remember, not only the way that we watched it, not only is it you're dealing with YouTube compression, you're dealing with YouTube compression of a VHS rip.
Yeah, this was a VHS rip. There were no other releases of this thing.
And even taking that into account, this was ugly as sin to look at. The very first time they did a CG sweep on that canyon, my eyes bled. It was awful.
Yeah, it was bad.
Because especially it's great because when you see you see Alita and Kyle just on that thing, you can tell that it's almost like a belt loop, but in 3D. Also, it's especially great. Like all the 3D in this just looks very cheap. Like I was thinking, I'm like, God, they should have just used footage from the Saturn, like just had the PC version, and just took the model from that and used that, and it would look better. But yeah,
it also really okay. So we'll worry about that later. But also, I'm gonna say one more thing is that the Blue Dragon did have a line that I really liked that in anything else would have been much better. Which is when Kyle is going gung-ho, ready to fucking die with the Blue Dragon to end this tower, and the dragon's like, no, you're going. A specific line was, this journey would have been meaningless if both of us die here.
Yeah.
No, this journey was completely meaningless from start to finish.
That's what I mean. It was like anything else, it would have been a really fucking good line. But in this, because it was such a fucking mess of an OVA, that it kind of rings hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It suffers from a lot of, and this is one thing, but it suffers from a lot of things that I felt were wrong with Megami Tensei.
See, Megami Tensei, though, is a thing you can appreciate more if you have cultural context. There's nothing to help you appreciate this more.
Yeah.
Which is also fair.
Always a mess.
Yeah, because you can, if you've played Panzer Dragoon, but like fully, it still doesn't.
It hurts more if you've played Panzer Dragoon, though.
Also, I have to ask this question because it's not going to be brought up in any other question. Why was there a commercial break? Why did it fade to black and then come back late into the movie?
I wonder if in Japan this was filmed on TV. Like that probably, because I mean, if you think about it, it's 25 minutes. So it's about, it fits into a 30-minute block.
I do have to say, though, going back over my notes, they do attempt some character building for the main character by giving us a scene where he reflects when he finds the captain and he sits down at the campfire. They do a quick flashback to show he's a hunter. He's kind of a transient, and he fell in love with Alita, so he's trying to stay in this village near her. So there is an attempt to build some backstory, but it's clunky, clumsy, and by that point, you don't even care.
Also, at one point, they do a flashback to something that literally just happened.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
That was the same point. He chastises BD, Beatty flies off, so he goes down to the camp to sit down, and then immediately flashes back to him chastising Beatty, running off and sitting down at the campsite.
Because we needed context for how he got there.
Yeah.
We couldn't show it as it happened. No, we had to flash back to it.
Yeah.
The exact note I have is Kyle chastised Beatty and sits at the campfire, remembers the last 5 goddamn seconds we just saw the fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can really think about the characters. Just to point out, this thing has probably some of the worst dialogue reads that I've listened or heard.
No,
There's a reason a good chunk of these voice actors have been in nothing else.
Yeah, because Kyle's voice actor, I think, was like extras in a bunch of things. I don't think he's been a
He was an 80 police, I think.
He was an 80. He was an 80 police. I think he was in something else. But yeah, it was nothing huge. Like ADV, I've heard decent dubs from them before. Like I know they're not.
Oh, this was 100% a cash in.
Yeah.
This was, like we said, they jumped in the studio, recorded the lines, and just a day. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it clearly shows on the final product.
At the very least, the voice direction is really bad and phoned in. I cannot really attest to the actors or what have you, but the direction is bad.
It's one note, monotonous, and there's just nothing.
Really weird pronunciation.
Yeah.
Dragon. Like,
he keeps saying it like that too, and it's weird.
It's like a hyphen in there. It's drag on.
Big fan of Drakengard, this man.
If only this was Drakengard.
God.
So
also, there were no
more
tanks.
interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember why it's specifically called Panzer Dragoon, but yeah. So going away from the settings and characters. So, Axe, how do you feel about the flow of this?
Okay, so I will give this credit. Obviously, we said Tensei needed context for it, but Tensei's flow was terrible. It was all over the place and nothing made sense. Dragoon did have a start, a middle, a finish. It had a flow, but its problem was that it wasn't really paced well. You got 25 minutes to tell a story, and you could definitely tell Panzer Dragoon's story in 25 minutes a lot better than they managed here. It like we brought up, you have a scene, and then 5 seconds later you flash back to the scene you just fucking saw. It's not very good. But at the very least, it start to finish, the plot, made sense, even if it wasn't particularly good or interesting.
Yeah. So, Death, what'd you think?
Bad.
Yeah.
It did not flow together well at all. The only reason I knew what was happening is I was vaguely familiar with the plot of the first game. Otherwise, ugh.
Torpo?
It was fucking incomprehensible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna level with you.
Yeah.
Shit just kind of kept happening, and none of it made sense or flowed quite right. Yes, there was technically a beginning and an ending, but everything in between was complete and utter nonsense.
Yes.
And it was so atrociously paced. I couldn't tell what they were going for. And it's doubly weird too, because they had a bunch of these action and story and character bits, but also they just had these scenic views to remind you what game it's from, but they still looked like shit.
Yeah.
When they were going through the ruins on the water, I just wanted to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this will go into the next question, but yeah, it technically, as X said, it had a flow, but the time length that they had to work with did not help it out at all, because it just seems like there was huge chunks of very vital things missing that really might helped it. So yeah, speaking of the length, this thing's 25 minutes long. So how about that length? By the way, before we continue to talk about the length, I just looked up because I was kind of curious. How long does it take to actually complete Panzer Dragoon on the Saturn? And YouTube has that the long play of this would take about 57 minutes. So it's not a particularly long game, but still, Yeah. So, Torpo, what do you think about?
Too much and yet not enough, and I don't know how to feel about it. Basically, a lot happens, but it's complete and utter nonsense, and like I don't feel like having more time would help them at all, because Panzer Dragoon itself is fucking bare bones when it comes, like, so completely bare bones. So I mean, like, I get that they tried to fill in the gaps, but there's only so much they can do, and like having more time wouldn't have fixed it. It would have just made it even messier with more weird scenes and weird vistas and all that, and it's kind of a shame because it could just never really capture. Because you say it's 50 minutes for Panzer Dragoon, but that game is all about spectacle, which this has none of.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we can probably combine this with the next question, which was, do you think that? So you're saying is that you don't think it'd be better if it was longer?
No, no.
Yeah. Okay. So, Death, what do you feel about length and whether or not making it longer would have been better?
They had about 4 minutes of plot, and they somehow dragged that out for 25 minutes. That's how I feel about that. It might have actually been better if it was longer, but like the thing is, they needed way more action sequences because they had kind of fuck all for that.
Yeah, because what you had like that scene at the beginning with him trying out the gun, and then the end fight with the Black Dragon.
Yeah.
And
And stuff with the Empire, like they got destroyed every time they showed up. Like, could have had a lengthy battle with that instead of just having the Blue Dragon utterly destroy their ship, but nah. Or stuff with the tower.
Yeah. So, Axe, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I can't really go cut and dry with this and say it wouldn't be better because it really depends. If they were to make it longer with the approach they took it, the 25 minutes, I would agree. Yeah, making it longer wouldn't work, and the length definitely hurts it. But I still think you could tell a decent story in 30 minutes. I really do think if you had a nice tight script that started, with an explanation of who the Empire is, and then just like a very brief description of who this character is. And then, like they did with the campfire scene, we got some backstory on him, and that was good enough to really establish who this character is. But if they'd done that a little better, it would have been fine. If they had done this, say, like a 45-minute with 3 or 4 major battles and then some key character scenes, this would have been absolutely fine on its own, building off of the game. But what they tried to do was do 30 minutes, jam a little bit of character development in, throw in a couple of throwaway fights that meant nothing and looked terrible, and then definitely try to, as Torpid mentioned, the ruins thing, evoke the feeling of the game, but did it terribly. So, like, it really would have depended on how they approached it. If they approached it with a decent script and, some decent ideas, I think 45 minutes would have been the perfect amount of time for this. As it is, 25 minutes was still not enough. Like it was never going to be any better, is I guess what I'm getting.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if they could. Maybe if it was 50 minutes, it might have been a little bit more coherent. But I don't think it would have been like the fix that was like, oh, this is going to be great now. No, there's problems that they still had, and if anything, a longer length might have exasperated it. Because if you think about how they showed their budget with 25 minutes, if they had 50 minutes, how much that would have been stretched out further.
Try stretching $5 over 50 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a structural.
I feel like $5 is being generous. They just found whatever change they could in the couch and used that.
Like the problem wasn't so much the length; it was the structure. It was the actual presentation.
Yeah.
It was rotten to its fucking core. Is the problem.
So, let's see. I think so. We get strong Axe with this one. Do you think they did the right thing by making new characters specifically for the Soviet?
Who fucking cares? Nobody mattered. Like, no, it didn't really mean anything.
Yeah, because it's like they made new characters, but they're practically like cookie cutter. They are practically cookie cutters of like
dead on arrival.
You literally could have given them any name, and they would still be like. I know that doesn't make sense. It makes sense coming in my head, but like these could have been anybody. You could have just told me that they were the characters in the game, and I wouldn't have mattered. It would have changed the damn thing because they just exist.
Yeah.
I'm all hyped up and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Angry about this anime.
Yes. Death, what are your thoughts?
It's kind of a mixed bag because I think well, it ties into all the other problems, but if this movie had just been Kyle and the Blue Dragon, they probably could have just carried on their own.
Yeah, because that's practically how it
But-
was in the game itself.
Because as it is, Alita, what's his face, the friend, the captains, they added nothing.
At least the friend existed to have a foil to the main character and sort of sacrifice them. The captain existing had no impact on anything.
He got his own subplot that meant nothing.
Yeah, they needed to have someone there to reference the first boss.
He mentions something about battling the tower 30 years ago, and it's done with just this bizarre, ominous trauma to it that just goes nowhere.
I was the sole survivor.
And then he just fucking dies with super jump death, and it's just why?
Fucking vaporized.
We
Yeah.
could have spent this time on a better battle, or just kind of extending, character development for the main character, but we'll waste it on this random dude.
Yeah. Torpo, what are your
What is the specific question again?
do you think they did the right? So, basically, do you think they did the right thing by adding new characters specific for the Soviet?
So this is a complicated question because I will say both yes and no. Basically, adding new characters if they want to actually do a proper plot and everything would be a necessity. Panzer Dragoon is fucking bare bones as hell. Let's not pretend it isn't.
Oh, definitely. is.
They needed to add in new characters, personalities in the strongest of air quotes if they wanted a more coherent plot at all, any sort of plot really. Otherwise, and more interestingly, it would just be a lot of scenic vistas and action, which I feel like would have been really good. But, which is why I say both yes and no, because if they wanted a proper narrative, then yes, the characters were a good idea, so to speak. But also, I would have been happy if it was just a bunch of vistas and action in over-the-topness, really.
Yeah.
They could have just focused on the war itself and not given us any background on anybody. It probably would have worked a lot better.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is they didn't even need anyone to talk. It would have been fine if literally nobody talked.
Huh.
Especially the main character.
Just once again, just action, vistas, and just what they're doing.
But then we'd have to look more at the 3D canyons, and I didn't want.
I mean, that's an issue of budget, really. That's a different beast entirely, if I'm gonna be honest. But so yeah, if they want a narrative, then yes, the characters are a good idea. Otherwise, it could have been actually pretty interesting. It's just a purely visual thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's I could have taken or left. I think Torpo had the good idea with basically. Yeah, it's just if they kind of needed if they wanted to do more thing. But if they just wanted to do action, then they probably didn't need the additional characters. Just had it between the main character and his dragon. Could have been neat. But yeah, I guess that's the way they went with. So speaking of 3D canyons, how do you feel this used elements of the game?
Fucking abysmally! Oh my god! It clashed. So to begin with, the 3D clashed really hard with the 2D because the 2D animation, while jank, generally looked like the characters looked all right and everything. That they were actually surprisingly fine. But the 3D itself was terrible, but that's what they relied on to do the various shots from the game, and it looked fucking abysmal. The actual original game looked better in motion than their 3D did. And it hurt.
Yeah. Yes. So, Death.
If I had watched this without knowing anything about Panzer Dragoon, I couldn't have told you what kind of game it was, because they used it terribly.
Yeah. So, Axe?
God damn. So, they didn't, there were definitely elements that I recognized from the game, and it didn't feel egregious like it sounded like the Super Mario one did, that y'all were describing. It definitely tried to make the elements it was using from the game fit where they were supposed to, and I think they succeeded there. However, everything looked awful. It felt awful. So even though it was in the right place, it still managed to suck. And yeah, if you were to watch this, you'd have no idea what kind of game you were probably going to end up playing. You know, is it a shmup? Is it a war simulation game? Are you actually controlling the dragon when you fly? Like, it doesn't really give off any of those impressions. And just, I keep going back to the ruin scene because it's the most egregious example of them trying to, you know, tie into the game, and it looks so fucking.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's like the one that is like, it is that and a tower are like the most egregious of like, hey, remember that scene from the game? But just some other points that I want to call out. The part at the very end when basically the dragon and Kyle are working together, and basically the way that they show like Kyle maneuvering the dragon by having the weird mind thought thing, and it looks really weird. Like it like it brightens up, like his head like glows and all that, and he just like go flank down 30 in something, like calling out numbers and such.
Yes, he's doing
That
his
entire bit felt like a fucking fever dream.
His magic math was fucking great, and I will not have you disparage that beautiful moment.
And also for some reason
Fucking
they
Master Navigator.
somehow they incorporate the homing shot as like this Hadoken thing
Yes.
to kill the black dragon.
This just reminds me of one of my favorite things is he has this gun and pretty much never uses it, and the dragon just vaporizes everything with a pulse.
He used it to hold the dragon at gunpoint and then to kill the captain, and that was it.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
My favorite was when he shot it off. He's like, "Whoa!" and then just never used it.
I got a gun. Now let me Hadouken.
Yeah. So yes, there's that. So our last question: do you feel this served as to act as a complement or supplement to this game or to the original game?
All right, let me answer the question, and also I'm going to bring up one other thing. So, no, this is, if you were to show me this and say, want to play the game now, I'd be like, hard pass. This was unenjoyable and uninteresting.
Just slap you directly on the.
Yeah, this does not help the property in any way. It doesn't expand on it. It doesn't put it in a good light. Also, what was up with Sauron's little Viagra coming out of the tower at the end? Because that's what it looked like to me, just a Viagra tablet in the middle.
Yeah, so death.
No, but yeah, this would not have sold anything on the game at all. And oh yeah, I mean to bring this up, the sequel to Panzer Dragoon had been out like long before this came out, so it wouldn't have sold either one of those.
Yeah, because Panzer Dragoon 2's Vi is actually really good. Like, the first one's okay, but 2, Vi is it's a torpo.
I'd say this acts as a detriment.
Yeah.
It is actively off-putting and bad. And also, I still appreciate the ending, where just all of a sudden the dragon's like, "Yeah, one of us has gotta fucking die."
So the thing about that is actually that's kind of funny is in the actual game, that kind of scene still happens where basically the main character gets put in a bubble, flies away while the dragon takes care of the tower himself. The thing is that and I think they kind of show it in the thing, like in the actual OVA, because the dragon lives in the game and basically just like drops him off at the beach, like they do in the game. But in this, they kind of is like, oh, it looks like it dies. But then, so you have the scene with Kyle and Alita. It's like where she
soar overhead.
Yeah, do you see the dragon soar overhead? And Alita's like, oh wait, what's that? And then Kyle says, that is our destiny or something like that.
That
is destiny. Yeah, the shape of destiny.
Yeah.
And I audibly said, "Go fuck yourself." That's
Okay, but real quick, once again, the dragon said one of us has to die here. And he even says, and if both of us die here, this journey will have been pointless, and fucks off. And as he's fucking off, says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do you a solid, bro, and give your girl her eyesight back."
like,
and it's like, what the fuck?
Like, why does it matter if they both live? The world gets saved, right? It's not like he's gonna ride another. Oh,
It's not like Kyle shows up in the sequel or anything, so
Oh, he's riding
Yeah.
something, all right.
Yeah.
But no, it's not just that. It's the fact that he just also goes, also, yeah, I'm gonna cure your girlfriend's blindness. It's
Yeah, just
like,
out of
okay.
nowhere.
so she could look upon your dumb face and realize what a mistake she's making in her life.
No, it's fine. They're trapped on a deserted island. She has no frame of reference.
Yeah.
God.
Okay. I think that is probably good for that. So let's get on to ranking this. So we have a 1 to 21 ranking scale where basically 1 is basically considered an absolute masterpiece, and 21 is considered don't even bother. It's not even a fun like look at.
21.
So starting with Axe.
21.
Shut the fuck up, Torpid. I wouldn't put it at 21 because there was still a little level of competency to it. Not much, but there was still enough to it that I could follow what was going on. I'd say at worst it's a 20, and at best it's an 18.
So Death.
21. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's up there.
Yeah, Torfo.
So, like, Axe, real quick, my problem is that 19 and 20 are very specific categories in terms of dog shit. This,
Yeah.
I think, is absolutely foul, though, so I'm saying 21.
So to go on to that, so if I pull up this description, so basically 19, 20, because so basically in our ranking list, 1, 2, and 3, 5, 8, basically have like the top have their own descriptions for each one, and the bottom have their own description. 19 is Fascinating Nightmare, which is kind of your okay, this isn't good, but it's kind of weird and it's kind of fascinating. 20 is Notably Unprepared or Spoiled, which is basically it's just really bad. Like you can get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. And 21 is Don't Even Bother. Like there is no redeeming qualities of this at all. It's not even so bad it's good. It's just so bad it's like don't even watch. So I do think the ceiling for this is 20. I do not think that it belongs to 19. And I just think if I'm thinking between 20 and 21, I actually would be fine with either. The thing that I would say about putting it in 20 is I actually can't think of how this gets worse. I think this might actually, because the reason I might put it in 21 is just the fact that as you were saying, Axe, you were saying earlier, if someone showed you this and you had never played Panzer Dragoon before and it would serve as a detriment, I feel that in itself kind of is like the exact count. It did the exact opposite of what this thing was supposed to do. Like it was supposed to take things that like, oh, hey, there's this thing that's for this game. And it's like, oh, it's like the supplement. It's in a way that people can get into it, that it's not just the game. But it did the exact opposite of what it should do. So that is my reason why I think it could be in 21, although it being in 20, because I'm sure you could get worse, but you'd have to try really hard for that.
And I can understand 20 because this is a thing that lived and died by its complete lack of budget.
Yeah,
Essentially, that's what screwed it.
And based on those arguments, I could also go with 20 being my ceiling, but I also wouldn't put it at 21 because again, there is some little bit that I think is enjoyable about it. The bad acting is amusing, and you know, I don't know. I can't really place this 21.
The one thing that I could see as a thing about 20 is it's 25 minutes long, so it's short. It's like it's done. It's ripping the Band-Aid off. Like it's really not good, but it's also it's not a time investment. It's not like it's super long or anything.
Didn't waste your time.
Like something like Megami Tensei is even a little bit longer, and that is a little bit more of an investment.
And that felt like I had wasted my time watching Tensei.
And yeah, and the thing with Megami Tensei, like we were talking about, is that this did have kind of a flow to it. It just did it kind of poorly. Whereas Megami Tensei just went all over the place and like did not have any flow.
And it did have moments where it genuinely did try to tell a story. And when it did try to tell a story, it sort of got I go back to the campfire scene. It's the most competent scene in the whole OVA, and I like that scene a lot. So
yeah,
I didn't like anything out of Tensei, so that's kind of also why I would put it at 20s, because I found bits and pieces of this OVA to enjoy.
I stand by what I said with 21. It did nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I see. That's the thing is like, with some context, I found Tensei a bit more watchable, but they're both terrible, incomprehensible messes. First,
yeah, I was gonna say,
Divisive.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, okay, do we do 20 or do I do 21? My
What does your heart tell you, Lola?
my heart says 21 for the purpose of I'm just rolling through my head anything that would go in this category. I cannot think of anything worse than this. And
I stand by Tensei.
Tensei's a 21.
Yeah.
So
They can both be 21.
they that is also true. They can also both be 21. Because yeah, it's not like it's a absolute cutoff of you have to be worse than this. They can both still be in that category.
There can be only one.
I wish. Yeah, I think for this point, maybe we can. I say this, but maybe at some point when we put more stuff in this, we can go back. If we get something that is in that territory, maybe we can go back. But I think right now, I think this is going to serve as our bottom. Well, it's going to serve as a bottom either way, but I think this is the absolute bottom. So yeah, I think this is a 21. So yes,
I will die for this to be a 20.
Oh, wait, well, oops, hold on. Exit. I hate keyboard shortcuts in spreadsheet applications. So yeah, I know. Okay, so this will be episode 11, 1996. I'll get that later. It is an OVA, and this is fantasy. So tone, yeah, because it's either war or high fantasy, or you could almost say steam. Like it's almost a kind of punkish, like Magitech or Magic Punk or steampunk or one of the.
But I think like the overall theme was about war. So
Yeah.
That was the driving force behind everything going on.
Really, it struck me more fantasy kind of deal.
Yeah, I kind of think overall probably fantasy maybe.
Wasn't really much war.
There's war going on in the background, but
Yeah.
There was the one fleet that they completely destroyed.
There were two of those.
yeah, I think in general it is a fantasy-ish kind of thing.
Fantasy.
So is there anything we want to call out in music,
No.
charm, cinematography, theatrics, action, artistry?
Thumbs down in artistry.
Artistry, theatrics, and cinematics, thumbs down.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
If you could a barfing face under cinematics.
I think that's good. I'll just go with thumbs down. So, and also the things to call out specifically as yay or nay, I do think length goes in the nay. Or does...
Put it in both.
Yeah, I could do yay because it's only 25 minutes long, but nay, that's what kind of hurt it a little bit. Yeah, I think that's probably good for that. Is there any other things you want to call out?
Do you have a coherency thing for nay?
Yeah, I do have a what the hell is going on, which I can put in there. Okay, I think there. So, yep, I can put that. So, yeah. Any other charms?
That's fun by me.
All right. If that's good for that, then I think that does it for Panzer Dragoon. So, before we go, is there anything that you want to plug, starting with Axe?
Hey, I've got a Twitch. That's twitch.tv/AxeImmortal.
Okay, Death?
I stream at mixer.com/master780.
Okay, Torpo?
Twitch.tv/TorpidTypist. And also, I would like to plug the hole in my skyship fleet. They are all dying. My men are.
All right. So, yes, that'll do it for this episode. So, next week, we are discussing the hunt for the Red October. It's not the hunt for the Red October. It is the hunt for Red October.
Yeah, that one threw me off many, many years ago.
But yes, we are talking about that movie next. So be sure to tune in for that. This has been another episode of Media Delta. If you would like to view the entire list of rankings for yourself, you can go to r3.ldp.life to see the Resonance and Essence list that Media Delta covers, as well as the other lists that are covered by our sister show, Retro Rank Rhapsody. If you'd like to watch Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can watch it live on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Twitch at twitch.tv/loadedpuzzle. Or you can view any of the episodes anytime at youtube.ldp.life. If you would like to help with hosting costs, you can go to patreon.ldp.life and help out with a $2 or $5 pledge. If you would like to discuss this episode and any other episode of our community, you can join our Discord server at discord.ldp.life. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can follow it at Hazeltown Story, or you can follow me, your host, at LoloDePuzzlo. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come back for around for the next episode.